John Reynolds resign. John Reynolds resign. John Reynolds resign. John Reynolds resign.
Tech expert Ahmed Manafa says Cruise's lack of transparency about its software and regulations led to a quick downfall.
If you look at a company like Google with their Waymo, which is the competition, compared to GM with Cruiser, it's like the turtle and the rabbit race. And for Cruiser, they went so fast, just without thinking about the consequences.
The turning point came in October. A woman walking in San Francisco was hit by a car and thrown into the path of a Cruise car, then dragged 20 feet. In response, the California Public Utilities Commission and California DMV suspended Cruise's Robotaxi permits. Then Cruise paused all driverless operations across the U.S. Cruise co-founder and CEO Kyle Vogt resigned in November. On Wednesday, 9 Cruise executives were fired amid the investigation into the San Francisco accident, one day before the layoffs.
John Reynolds resigned.
Outside CPUC headquarters Thursday, members of labor groups calling for the removal of CPUC Commissioner and former Cruise attorney John Reynolds. Protesters say Reynolds should not have been a part of the decision to let Cruise cars operate in the city.
We're demanding here today that John Reynolds, who was a lawyer for Cruise for many years, who was appointed by Governor Gavin Newsom, be immediately removed from this board. In fact, all the commissioners should resign.
Neither the CPUC or Reynolds have commented.
Cruise will be back. It's going to be back simple. It's going to be back very slow. Driverless autonomous cars are here to stay. The technology is there. It's just we have to make sure that safety is number one.
The layoffs make up roughly a quarter of employees at Cruise, and employees will be paid through February 12th.
My name is Steve Zeltzer. I'm with the United Front Committee for a Labor Party, and there's some other organizations that are supporting this press conference today, this rally. We're having this today at the California Public Utility Commission meeting to demand that the John Reynolds, who was a Cruise lawyer for years, be immediately removed from the California Public Utilities Commission. The recent action of CPUC and others to revoke the license of Cruise is another example of how this agency has failed to protect the people of California, the riders, the drivers, and the people of California. They knew that this was a dangerous vehicle, that this Robotaxi was basically using the people of San Francisco and California as guinea pigs to test their AI. And yesterday we had the situation where the National Transportation Safety Board has called a recall, ordered a recall of the autopilots of Teslas. This is another example of how the government has been captured by the billionaires, by Cruise, by Elon Musk, and they're allowed to run roughshod over the people of San Francisco and the people of California. We say enough is enough. This California Public Utility Commission, which we pay for, the people of California pay for, is basically a tool of the tech companies. They allow unbridled development of this technology without concern of the people of San Francisco and the people of California. So we're demanding here today that John Reynolds, who was a lawyer for Cruise for many years, who was appointed by Governor Gavin Newsom, be immediately removed from this board. In fact, all the commissioners should resign. They should take responsibility for what they did. We need an elected board of the California Public Utilities Commission. We have to put the people back in charge of the California Public Utility Commission. This is not the first example of a disaster that's happened in California. You have the PG&E situation in which people have been killed as a result of inaction by the California Public Utility Commission. They give PG&E the right to raise their prices. PG&E should be a public municipal utility. It should be controlled by the people of California. So what we're saying here today, enough is enough. John Reynolds has to go. And Gavin Newsom, you have blood on your hands. Gavin Newsom is responsible for this because he appointed all the members of the California Public Utility Commission. He has to take responsibility because they're doing his bidding, and he's doing the bidding of these tech companies, of Google, of General Motors, which own Cruise, and these other developers. The people that have been injured in San Francisco were also saying that the district attorney of San Francisco, Brooke Jenkins, should immediately investigate and prosecute Cruise CEOs and executives for what they did. They covered up They covered up the accident that happened in San Francisco with a woman pedestrian who was hit. They covered it up and they didn't provide the video footage. Now, if an individual had done that, if I had done that, had been in an accident and then refused to provide the image, said all the images were there, they would prosecute me for felony. District attorney would prosecute me, the state would prosecute me. They need to do the same with the CEO executives at Cruise, or ex-executives.
Right.
They were removed.
Yeah.
We're
Yes.
saying enough is enough. These executives have to be prosecuted, and we're saying that the people of California, the people of San Francisco have a right to a Public Utilities Commission that's going to represent the people's interest and not the interest of the tech billionaires.
Yes.
So our next speaker is Edward Escobar. He's with Alliance for Independent Workers.
Ladies and gentlemen and members of the press, we want to thank you for your coverage of today's event. This is historical because what we're having here is a complete takeover by AI. With this paradigm shift, the introduction of the autonomous robotaxis, they are ushering in this new age of AI and automation, which we're looking at millions, if not billions, of workers that will be displaced, not just here in the U.S., but globally. Now, this is an ongoing problem. A lot of people are not even aware that's going on, but we were successful in initiating and instigating the removal of GM Cruise from California, having their permit pulled. And that's from grassroots action. So when people stop and ask themselves, can I do anything to stop this? Yes, you can. Yes, you can. Si se puede make a difference. But we have to do it by coming together, by being here today, by calling out the CPUC. Don't forget, it's the California Public Utilities Commission. We are the public. Yeah. And they have to answer to us. They are supposed to work for us. They're supposed to do the job for us. And yet they have it backwards. And we need to remind them who they work for. And that's why we're here today. We're calling out the CPUC, in particular, John Reynolds. He was managing legal counsel for GM Cruise up until 2019. He is one of the 5 commissioners. Now, he had the opportunity to recuse himself, but John Reynolds said, no, I don't need to because it's already been long enough. Since 2019, he did the bidding for GM Cruise. He argued for them legally, their argument to exist. And then he says that he's not biased? Not biased? Come on, people. We need to call these people out. This is basic common sense. We shouldn't allow this to happen. We did an action in front of Brooke Jenkins, the DA of San Francisco's office. We called her out and said, prosecute the tech billionaires. Prosecute them because they are accountable, just like us, to be on the street, but no one's enforcing it. So what's happening? When there's an article that comes out that confirms what we had already been saying, is that they don't even have any legislation, any code violations at the DMV for these companies. Just because they say, oh, there's no driver at the wheel. Come on. You know who owns it. It's clear. Google Waymo, GM Cruise, and you have Amazon Zoox. Let's not forget them. These are multi-billionaire, multi-billion-dollar, multinational corporations. They're putting profits before people 24/7. This is not acceptable, people. And we need to say no. We need to say no to this. Otherwise, it's going to get extremely out of control. And let me remind you, we are not against tech, okay? We are not against tech, but we are against technology that benefits the few at the expense of the many. And we say no to the Robotaxis. They are not ready for prime time. San Francisco Fire Chief said they are not ready for prime time. Aaron Peskin says that they should not guinea pig San Francisco. We said that first. We said that first. So we don't mind because imitation is the most sincere form of flattery. And that means that we're getting the word out. But we need to keep talking. The narrative needs to be driven from the trenches, from the people. We are San Francisco, and we need to demand that things get done right. London Breed, stop standing on the fence. She is nowhere to be seen when it comes to the passenger vehicles, the sedans. She came out to support against the trucks, the 10,000 pounds or more Robo vehicles, the trucks. But that failed. Why did it fail? AB 316. Because Gavin Newsom has a love affair with big tech. In 2020, for his campaign, Google gave him $10 million. So who do you think he answers to? It's not rocket science, people. The answer's right there in front of your face. But the problem is, progressives, Dems, they don't want to appear to be divided. But you got to call out your leadership and make them work for you. Otherwise, the Democratic Party is going down like the Titanic. So we need to stand for a legitimate future, a future of work, and we need to integrate with technology. And we're not saying no to technology. We are saying we need to have the discussion. How are we going to transition the millions, if not billions, of laborers, workers who are going to be out of a job? And it's not just them, because also white collar, doctors, surgeons, attorneys, they're all going to be displaced by the new age of AI. This is happening now, and it's viral. So we don't have the luxury of tomorrow. Now's the time. Otherwise, there is no tomorrow. There is no tomorrow. There is no tomorrow if we don't do something today. I'm Edward Escobar, founder of the Drivers Unite Alliance for Independent Workers. Thank you.
Woo. Thanks, Edward.
Thank you, Edward. And again, at this commission meeting, we're going to be demanding that John Reynolds be removed. Gavin Newsom has blood on his hands, and this is an attack on the people of San Francisco and the people of California. Who's going to hold them accountable? The people have to hold these politicians accountable. And the Democrats, the Democratic Party, which has gone along with the unbridled introduction of AI in California, regardless of the cost. There are millions of workers whose jobs are threatened by AI. Who are going to defend them? Apparently the Democrats are not. Our next speaker is Bradley Wiedemeyer. He's a home care worker and member of SEIU 2015. I would have to also say that the Teamsters nationally are calling for the removal of John Reynolds. We support that. We support the call of the Teamsters to remove John Reynolds, but we have to say removing John Reynolds is not enough, because this entire commission has really breached their relationship with the people of California. It's not just John Reynolds. Most of them voted for it, and they've gone along with the destruction that this AI cruise has done. So welcome, Bradley.
Thank you, Steve. You know, if you had attended our rallies, you would have heard about the issues, the crisis in developing AI that was being sabotaged by allowing an unsafe cruise to go forward. That's what happened, and we talked about it all summer and in the fall. And we haven't heard how critical the sister was injured at Market and 5th Street. No word. How often they're keeping it completely silent. That's part of the media's responsibility. As far as we know, the woman is still in critical care. I went there the morning after, and her remains had been washed off 5th Street. And what was the deal? We were being lied to from the very beginning, and the PUC and the regulators were being lied to. That vehicle hit her, and then all the times that those stupid cruise cars didn't pull over to the side, this time when the woman's pinned under the car, the AI decided to pull the car to the curb, dragging the woman. And she's still recovering.
20 feet.
20 feet. And this was halfway down between Stevenson and Market Street, and they said they immediately stopped. And how do you go 125, 150 feet and call that immediately stopping? And those lies persisted. Now, luckily, it was exposed. And what did that do for the safety testing? It was a signal to everybody else, forget safety. We can just rip forward and get our cars on the street. and start making money. Which, by the way, we need to have a tax to support the dislocation of drivers.
Yes.
We need that now because they're making money. Waymo is still making money. And the drivers are one of the largest categories of workers in the country. And this whole attack, it was clear that they were not interested in regulating this. They were just interested in giving a green light. John Reynolds needs to resign. He needs to be taken off this board.
Yes.
And as far as the Democratic Party, you know, they had supervisors coming on the day that the decision came down saying that they were against speaking to truck drivers who are facing the same elimination of their jobs, and the Governor Newsom's veto of a bill that ensures safety until AI for 80,000-pound trucks is safe. And these supervisors, Democrats, as they all are, all of a sudden were very concerned and saying they were supporting, but we didn't hear a word from these two. We hadn't heard a word in the discussion. And we heard some belly aching and griping and a lame lawsuit. Hopefully that's going to be beefed up so that the safety is not derailed. And let me talk to you about workers at Cruise and the other places that were hired to help develop the safety. They were fired by Cruise because, hey, you're taking this safety thing way too seriously. You're supposed to investigate the things we tell you to and not bring into concerns that are key. There were people fired by Cruise because they were doing their job of working to say what the problems were. And Waymo uses basically the same thing, so this was a damage control situation when Cruise was exposed as filthy liars. They were taken down as a sacrificial lamb, a little setback. GM and Cruise. But look, Ford and Volkswagen are out of this. We're not ready. Or there's so much to be done, it's not at this point. That's their professional evaluation. And so we better make sure that Ford and Volkswagen are wrong before we have cars dragging people underneath them down the street.
Yes.
And the Democratic Party that is ahead of the city, we are a statutory city. We have the right to rule our streets with laws. We have the right to regulate taxis and hail driving. This is not acceptable. And the Democratic Party is surrendering its position and its authority to other people. The San Francisco Democratic Party needs to be replaced by a workers' party.
Yes.
Because they're not representing working people, and they're certainly not working drivers. And they're not representing the citizens of this city and the safety. You better be very aware of the vehicles around you, because some of them have questionable functioning. You know, and AI is not that terrific. You know, Israel right now is bragging about their AI bombs. And what they're actually just using are dumb bombs, way too big, 2,000-pound bunker bombs. So it's a lot of baloney coming that way too.
Thank you, Brad. So again, we're going to be going into the commission meeting. We're going to be demanding that John Reynolds be removed. We're going to be calling for accountability by Governor Gavin Newsom. We believe that the governor personally personally is responsible for what's happened with Cruz. He made sure that his commissioners, who he appointed, voted for the allowing Cruz to operate unregulated. There was no oversight of Cruz, and these agencies, not only the California Public Utility Commission, but the Department of Motor Vehicles, they didn't give a test to these robot vehicles before they put them on the streets. The DMV, which he also runs, he appoints a director of, refused to properly do oversight of the introduction of robo vehicles. You can't blame anybody else. These are the agencies. In fact, in San Francisco, they removed the authority of the city to regulate taxis, and then they allowed Uber to come in here and put drivers out of work. This is deregulation. This is an attack on the workers, the taxi workers, and this is a threat to all working people and the public in San Francisco and California. So I want to thank you. It's time for a change. We need worker representatives on the CPUC. We need people who are going to represent working people, not the tech billionaires. And that's exactly what's happened with the CPUC. It represents PG&E. It represents the billionaires who are completely out of control. They are destroying San Francisco. They're destroying the public, and we have to take action. And that means the first is the removal of John Reynolds. He has to be held accountable. He actually was a lawyer for Cruz, and he was voting for them to be allowed to operate in San Francisco without any regulation. This is a catastrophe. It's a disaster. And again, Brooke Jenkins, the district attorney, should be prosecuting the Cruz executives because they're personally responsible. If you or I commit a crime, were prosecuted. Why are they above the law? Why is there no prosecution of Cruz executives?
Yes.
You can kill somebody and you're above the law? This is what Brooke Jenkins should be held accountable for. You can't kill somebody and injure somebody, lie about it, and get off and not be prosecuted. They need to be prosecuted, as have been other workers or other people who drive, who run over people and then lie about it. And that's exactly what Cruz did. No one is calling for the prosecution, but they should be prosecuted. We can't have a double standard in San Francisco and California about this whole crisis, really, of AI and unregulated introduction of AI, putting people out of work and threatening the health and safety of the people of San Francisco and California. Enough is enough. Thank you, brothers and sisters.